Go. Everybody, happy Tuesday. It's time for another hour of good nature. Um, I got to kind of gather my head, and I was next door over at the Baker building. We had shot some video today for an upcoming staff training. So I've got to assemble my thoughts here so we can talk about what we're all here for, which is nature. I was doing a little tidying up earlier today, and I came across these specimens I thought you might be interested in. Every year we, along with the Forest Preserve District of King County and our friends down at Red Oak Nature in North Aurora, we participate in an event called the Rusty Rodeo. We've met and we've chosen the date for this year's event. It is the second Saturday in August. Of course, the actual date is escaping me at the moment, but it will be 10 a.m. to noon. New location for our Red Oak partners. Instead of being at Glenwood Park Forest Preserve, they're going to be down at North Aurora's Island Park, which is just south of the Route 56 bridge, for those of you who are local. Here in St. Charles, we're going to meet again in the stretch of river just north of Prairie Street behind the brownstone development to go after those rusty crayfish once again, which looks something like this. Now, this is a specimen that was in, it was in the van that I drive. And these, I think, were a couple of individuals. We're not allowed to keep any live rusty crayfish. We have to kill all of them. These were a couple that were killed, but then not fed to the Blandings turtles, which is the whole point we participate in the program. These things are great food. It's like lobster for our Blandings turtles, the state endangered species we have at Hickory Knolls. Anyway, I wanted to show you, first of all, the size of the claws on these things. I mean, this is really something quite a bit larger than what we would see on our native crayfish. This is a younger individual here, but it's actually more typical of the size of native crayfish we have here. So you can just imagine these rusty crayfish, which were introduced to this area through the fishing bait trade. They're a lot of times when we talk about a species that has been introduced and has wreaked havoc, we're talking about something that's come from another continent. The rusty crayfish, which is the state considers it not only an invasive species, but an injurious species. Means it does all kinds of bad things to its habitat and its neighbors. It came from the Ohio River drainage, so not all that far away, but it does. It's pretty aggressive in its habits. It bullies, beats our native species. It also, its feeding habits are quite harmful to the environment too, because they shred a lot of plant material as they're feeding, and that, of course, then ruins the plants for all the other creatures that need it. So one, check out these claws. Two, happen to take a peek underneath here. This is a male crayfish. Can you see these structures right here? Those are what are called the gonopods, or the male stuff. And those actually change shape depending on whether the male is in breeding mode or not. There's form 1 and form 2 forms of those structures. Now, there are other similar looking structures that run down the tail called the swimmerets. In the females, that is where the eggs and then the young, they hang on to mama for, I think it's at least 1 molt before they disperse. But those modified organs up here are what identifies this as a male crayfish. This is actually, I was hoping this was a female so we could do a compare and contrast. This one is the same sex. It's another male. But it is, again, more typical of the species, the natives, more typical of the size of the native species that we have here. So yeah, I was having a little fun earlier playing crayfish wars. We'll put these to the side. One other show and tell thing that came in last week. We talked about these, it was either last year or 2 years ago. And now after my furry roommates kind of destroyed the ones I had, I now have a fresh one, courtesy of our friend Terry. It's a ball of feathers, and it really, it looks like an ornament, or maybe something that fell off of a hat, or somebody's coat that had buttons that were made out of feathers. But really, what it is, and I believe this is goose. I believe this is from the chest or the breast of a Canada goose. What happens when these birds get predated, and the predator, whether it's a mammal, say a coyote or a fox, or a hawk, an eagle, actually eagles sometimes go after geese too, when they're pulling the feathers off of the bird, it's not just feathers. Sometimes they grab tissue too, some skin, and that's what happens. That's how these balls form. It's going to be hard to see here because there's a lot of down in the way, but in the middle of this ball of feathers, it feels hard or crusty. And so there's skin there. And as that dries, it tightens up, it shrinks, and it causes the feathers that are attached to the skin to make this really cool ball. So now, knowing what happened to the one that I brought home, the two that actually I had two that I brought home, I'm going to keep this here at Good Natured World Headquarters in this cup, where hopefully no harm will come of it. So that was a couple of show and tell things I wanted to mention. This is also sort of show and tell. Let's see, let's go with a couple of PDFs that have come through the old inbox. One, it's an annual thing. I know we've talked about it in the past, but there's a gentleman named Carl Strang. He used to work for the DuPage Forest Preserve District. Now that he's retired, he has been able to really pursue one of his passions, which is singing insects. Carl travels throughout the collar counties around the Chicago area, into Indiana. I think he goes up into Wisconsin too, and he might even go into the southeast part of Michigan. But he is monitoring and really developing a comprehensive map of all different types of singing insects: crickets, katydids, grasshoppers, cicadas. He has his guide, which is the PDF I'm about to share with you. And then he also every year produces an update that's kind of like an appendix or an addendum of significant changes that he's seen in the ranges of these different insects. There's actually quite a few of them. The guide is, I want to say the PDF is it over 100 pages, 80 some species. There's a lot of information here. So let's just, since it's been a couple of weeks now, I have to remember how we do our shares. But we're, you know what's weird? I've got the share screen pulled up and there's nothing here to click to optimize for video. So either they have, yeah, see, they've changed it. So I'm going to share computer audio. What the heck? The audio part is what is the most important part of this PDF. So I'm going to see, you guys probably can't see what I'm talking about here. All right, so we're sharing. Let's go over here and hopefully these will play. So here is, here's the guide. And if you're not seeing it, somebody please let me know, because I would not be surprised at all if I just messed that up. But here's the cover. Singing Insects of the Chicago Region, A Guide to Crickets, Katydids, Grasshoppers, and
Sam, we're not seeing anything.
I
We
don't
see,
know that.
we see you.
Oh, that's not what we want you to be seeing. Hold on. Let's see. All right, so if I go back to Zoom and we go to screen share, you know, I'm just gonna do it. So normally when we do the share, they moved, I found it.
My message says, Pam, that you're sharing the audio, but not the
the video. Okay.
video.
Let's get out of this stuff. All right, I'm just going to stop this. We're going to start over. Stop the share. So there's two little boxes that you check, one to optimize for video and for audio. And it used to be at the bottom of the share screen. And now there's these big squares that say video and audio. Then up there in the corner, all right, there are the boxes that I was looking for. So let's try this one more time. I'm going to share sound, optimize for video. All right. So with any luck now, we're seeing, I don't know what that square is there, but let's go back up. So here is Carl's cover. Is that working now? Can't make this square go away, but
Yep, we can see it.
okay, so here it says, Singing Insects of the Chicago Region, A Guide to Crickets, Katydids, Grasshoppers, and Cicadas with Audible Displays. So that means, because, you know, I had, last summer, I had found a little pygmy grasshopper in my yard, and I thought, oh, grasshopper. I will send it to Carl for confirmation. I sent him a picture, and he looked at it, and he's like, yeah, it's a pygmy grasshopper, but it doesn't sing, so I don't follow them. So it's the species within those different groups that actually make sounds. Being a PDF, you can search through it. I actually heard from someone today who was asking about the sounds that the periodical cicadas make. So let's go jump ahead. This is actually quite a ways through the document. Besides a species account, what Carl includes on here are links to websites. So University of Michigan has a really comprehensive Cicadas of Michigan site. And you can listen to a chorus of individuals. You can also listen to, let's go back up here. So here's some photos. I tell you, these periodical cicadas, which we're just going to keep hearing about now until they actually come out towards the end of May. They look very similar. This particular species, Cassini species of periodical cicada, is known to be somewhat smaller than the other ones. And then there's 3 species in our area. They all differ in the way that they, the way they sound, but also in their coloration. Instead of the greens and the browns that we see with our annual cicadas, these insects are black and orange. They've got red eyes. They're really pretty striking. All right, so let's go back down here to the, hope I'm not making you guys dizzy. Here is just an individual. That's a chorus. Let's see. Calling song. Okay, well, let's go back here to another one. Yeah, I wanted it to play the individual song because this is what I heard. Let's try another one. I heard a few so we have a little, what they're called, I always want to call them laggards, but there's a portion of brood 13, which is what we have in this area, and they are they're 4 years off. So they were actually calling in 2020, and I heard just a few of them over by my mom's house in Wheaton. And then last year, there's actually a little subset here in Kane County that was calling last year. So let's try this again here. So the calling song, let's listen to this. Well, that's weird because that's the same one we just heard. But that's the one. It sounds like they're saying Pharaoh. It's a two. That's when they start syncing their songs together. Just for kicks, let's try one of these. So that is Septendism, which is our the larger of the three species that we see in this area. Anyway, I don't want to belabor you this technical difficulty we're having. If you would like a copy of Carl's Singing Insect Report, just shoot me an email. I'd be glad to forward it to you. It's about 6 megabytes, chock full of information. Really handy to have around, especially once the weather warms up and we are actually looking at these and hearing these singing insects. The other PDF I wanted to share, I came across by accident, but I was super excited. It's called Dr. Eleanor's Book of Common Ants. I was actually looking up books by a favorite author, Rob Dunn. He wrote the book we've talked about a few times called Never Home Alone. And it's about all the creatures that have found a comfy place to live around human beings. A few things that are in our bodies, but mostly things that are around our bodies, things that live, things that live in our water heaters and things that live in our freezers, bacteria and things that are have become, that do well in temperature extremes, have found homes in parts of our homes. There's a chapter on cockroaches. There's a chapter on little camel crickets that have, we have native species that live in caves around here, but there's a lot of that have been imported, and they live in people's basements. Well, anyway, Rob Dunn takes very complex topics and makes them very easy to understand and very readable. And now he, well, actually, this book is not new. I think it's from, there we go, 2017. Somehow a PDF has been created. It demystifies the topic of ants. I have fussed over ants for literally decades at this point. I've been trying to sort ants out. There's just so much information, so many different tiny little parts that you have to look at. Well, this PDF takes ants down and brings them to a very understandable, very relatable level. This is the version of the book that has ants from around the country. So like southern fire ants. Thankfully, we are not having to be concerned about them here in northern Illinois. But so in that respect, it's there is a little bit of extra information because it is a coast-to-coast field guide. There is, however, if you are into ants or want to be into ants, there is a Chicago ants version of this book that you probably have to get online. But again, I stumbled across this PDF. It's really interesting, really readable. If you are at all curious about ants, I highly recommend this, and I would be happy to forward it to you as well. See, this is what I mean about all these little parts. The gaster is what I would call the abdomen. Antennae are pretty self-explanatory. Thorax is right there. The pedial is what connects the thorax to this hind part here. And this is one of the keys to identification for a lot of species. You have to see, you know, how many humps it has on it, if it's elongated, if it's very close up to the body. Lots and lots of little things to become familiar with. So you know, here, like, this is the kind of language, and boy, I wish I could get rid of that green square there, but it says, they talk about the PDL is the really skinny section between the thorax and an ant's big fat bottom, which we often call a gaster. So, you know, that kind of language I find fun to read, and also very educational too. So anybody who would be interested in that, just shoot me an email. I would be glad to forward this to you. All right, let's dispense with the PDFs. This will be two fewer screens that I won't have to worry about. Get rid of that. So I opened up my inbox. Actually, no, I take that back. This started off as a text. This next little thing we're going to look at, it came through as a text. And I don't know if you guys have the same problem with your phones, but when I get a video texted to me, a lot of times it's compressed and it's pixelated and it's really hard to see details. So I asked the sender to email it, which she did. This video actually dates to the summer of 2019, but the person who took it was something they observed around here. It reminded me of something someone else had shared, and I could not remember what it was. Let's play it. My input can't be opened. It's gonna be one of those nights. I just played this a little while ago. I tell you what, folks, I'm gonna stop the share. We're gonna start it over again. Try one more time. Share the screen. Share sound, share video, share. All right, so we're gonna try this again. Check the log. Your input can't be open. VLCs on. Oh, shoot. I don't know why, because it was playing just fine earlier. I don't know if it's the share that it's protesting. We'll just close it. I'll have to show you. Here, we'll go to this one. So what this video was this writhing mass of what looked like caterpillars. But what it actually was, I wonder if this would let me share the YouTube video on this page. What it is, it's the larvae, or the fly larvae. So some people call those maggots. We're just going to zoom ahead. So dark winged fungus is what we're looking at here. They move in a mass.
That's weird.
Turn the audio off on it. So they move like a conveyor belt. There's the mass of larvae at the bottom of the swarm, and they're walking, and then another layer of larvae will come up on top of that bottom larvae. And it's just like, you know, when you walk on those moving sidewalks at the airport and you're moving twice as fast because the ground underneath you is moving. It's the same with these larvae. They're moving in this swarm because they're crawling on top of each other, and they can actually, when there's 3 layers of larvae, they can actually move twice as fast. Let's see if this is the scientific explanation of it. Let's go back to this. This is essentially what that video showed. The quality wasn't quite as good as this one, but this happens when we have heavy rains. These fungus gnats actually live in the ground, but they'll come up and then they'll go on the move like this, and they'll cross driveways, they'll cross sidewalks. It was a really cool phenomenon. Someone had sent me another video, but this is going back probably at least 10 years. All I can remember is that it was over somewhere on the east side of St. Charles. All right, we're going to stop him. We're going to go back to this explanation here. This is from U of I Extension, Phil Nixon, who's a somewhat legendary entomologist here in Illinois. He gives the full life cycle description. And of course, because they're something that lives in the soil, they do give recommendations for how to remove them because they can feed on roots and things, which aren't that helpful to what you're trying to grow. But where was the other part here? What is it? Fungus gnat adults are tiny blackish flies that hover as a large swarm. And they've also been very common. This is an undated article, so I don't know what year he wrote this. But they form the same kind of swarms that we see in midges and other types of small flies. A whole bunch of males come together and they'll be hovering. Sometimes it's right around your head. But that's how they are able to attract females, is by gathering together like that. But anyway, it was a really cool video, and I'm sorry I couldn't get it to play. But if you want to see it again, let me know. I'd be glad to shoot it out to you. And since we're batting 1,000 here, let's try some photos. We had, in fact, I'm working on a column right now on this. This is a, let's see, let's go to the other picture here. You know, this was described as a downy woodpecker, but looking at that bill, I would love for you guys to weigh in on that. That's that bill looks kind of long, but the bird itself looks pretty small in comparison. This is your standard sized suet cage. Let's see, let's go back. Boy, I wish I could get rid of that green square. But this, anyway, this is a bird, a woodpecker with aberrant coloration. So you can, sometimes it's called leucism because it's suppression of the dark pigments. Sometimes it's called amelanism. You know, melanin is our the dark pigment causes dark colors on all sorts of different types of animals. So amelanism would be a lack of melanin in different areas. Sometimes it's called, and I've heard we should say this, and then I've heard no, that's not correct. Partial albinism is another term that's sometimes bounced around. So I've been kind of trying to read up a little bit more on the science behind this, but it's really what it boils down to is there's a little blip in the genetic code that causes some of these pigments to be suppressed, and this is the bird that we end up with. So it's a male because of the red there. But yeah, if you want to express your ideas, in the email, it was described as a downy woodpecker, and I was so focused on the coloring, that's what I was thinking. But that bill does look kind of long for a downy. So if you guys want to vote in the chats for either downy or hairy, I'd appreciate it, because yeah, I think I do want to write about it, but I want to make sure I call it the right species. She said she has some other photos too, so maybe I'll ask her for those. That might give us a better angle. That's a big bill. A lot of times a downy bill looks more like just a little thorn popping out from the front. Anyway, that is one set of pictures I wanted to show you. And then we had another couple here. Let's make this bigger. Look what we've got. This green frame, this annoying green frame does nicely outline what we're looking at here. Look at this cute little goose. Let's see, can we zoom in on it here? Yeah. box out of the way. Yeah, right, zoom it this way. So this, it's colored like a snow goose, but the size of it and this tiny little bill here, this would identify this bird as a Ross's goose. They are kind of rare around here. This is where the fun of these huge flocks of Canada geese that we have around here, being able to scan the individuals to see if a little treasure like this will pop up. There's one more picture here showing this bird. They are notably, if there were other snow geese around, the Ross's goose would stand out for being smaller than its cousins, the snow geese. This sighting of this bird this week in St. Charles, this was last weekend, these pictures came in. This gives me a chance to share another. I'm gonna get rid of this, get rid of that. This is another favorite resource that I go to a lot, and you might be familiar with it, you might not. It's all about birds. It's allaboutbirds.org. It is maintained by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and you can look up pretty much any species you want using the search box here, and then they can give you an overview. The overview has this neat section called Cool Facts. Just insider information. This is oftentimes when I'm looking up a bird and I read the cool facts, if there is something really cool, that's gonna probably elevate it up to column status. I'm probably gonna want to write about it. This does talk about how, where's the migration information here? They they talk about how these birds they change the landscape of where they nest at. So if we go up here to life history, gonna make that map bigger here. And I apologize, boy, I am just moving these screens all over the place. I hope you guys aren't getting seasick watching this, but so in the life history, it explains where they migrate from and where they nest in. They breed only in Canada, nesting in dry, low Arctic tundra. Well, the cool fact is that they are such voracious feeders of the sedges, the grasses, the vegetation in that area, that they will actually eat it down to the nub. And satellite photography of Ross's geese breeding areas, you'll see these masses where they've actually stripped the vegetation away, because there's so many geese and they're eating so much of the vegetation up there. But you can listen to their sounds. There's if it's a bird that has both a song and a call, those will be found on this page. This maps page gives us an idea of the summer range up here, which is the orange, the migrating range, which we're really not include. You can see why seeing a Ross's goose around here is something to get excited about, because while they're can be seen through much of Illinois during migration, it's not very often that they come over here to northeastern Illinois. And then this is the blue part would be their overwintering areas. So cool bird and a cool resource for learning more about it. All right, let's get rid of that window. And then this, I have wanted to show you this now for a couple of weeks. This is, you hear Good Natured World headquarters, we like to play around with black light and see, you know, what fluoresces, what kind of cool colors we can see. Well, Mike, you know, you guys tune in every week, and this was a neat, not really an article. It's a neat feature that was put out by the New York Times, and it's all about how animals perceive the world, because their eyes are, you know, our human eyes and their animal eyes are built very differently. This shows how, because we can't see ultraviolet light, but animals can. This is what a blue sky looks like to animals equipped, a lot of birds and things that can see in the ultraviolet part of the spectrum. This is what a blue sky looks like. And then I wanted to scroll down here. They show what rainbows look like to birds. They actually have a broader rainbow because they can see in the ultraviolet spectrum. A mouse actually has a much narrower rainbow. They can only see green and ultraviolet. So the rainbow would only have 2 bands to it if it was a mouse. Those colors there. I wanted to scroll down here. So these are clouded sulfur, or no, I'm sorry, orange sulfur butterflies. And now to our eyes, these butterflies actually look like this. They're orange and yellow, but viewed by perhaps a predator, these birds are going to look. I was laughing. Boy, you know, talk about a tough life, being a butterfly in a scientist's lab, just constantly being poked and prodded. Come on, open your wings, open your wings. What they try to show here, and what he'll do here when he's going to open the wing up just a little bit, you can see that pink color. That's what these butterflies look like to birds. All right, there was one more here. This was kind of cool. This is putting sunscreen on. So, okay, you can see the guy's skin color, and then look at that gold color. That's what happens because, you know, our eyes perceive it as white, but because they're designed to absorb ultraviolet light, little ultraviolet light escaping the arm takes on a yellow cast. This is how bees see us out in nature when we're all slathered with our sunscreens on. Pretty crazy, huh? And then this was kind of neat too. Again, I was getting a kick out of the harassment that these poor creatures undergo. This is a black swallowtail caterpillar, which they have 2 different color forms. They can be mostly black with some green and yellow highlights, or they can be this, which is green, but green through ultraviolet vision looks red. And then what they're calling attention to here, and why they're agitating this poor little creature. See those little things that pop out? This is something you too can do. Won't look quite like this. Under ultraviolet light, that what's called an osmeterium pops up. It releases a scent. It's supposed to deter predators because it doesn't smell very good. But it comes out when the caterpillar is agitated. They're showing in this particular shot how a honeybee would perceive its neighbor, the swallowtail, black swallowtail caterpillar larva. So just kind of another fun take. I always say humans are handicapped by our our senses. This is how we perceive our world. And it's real easy to make the assumption that everything else sees things the same way we do. And this great little resource here proves that it clearly is not the case. Okay, let's take this one down here, and let's go to this week's screen share. Boy, I wish I knew how to get rid of this. So you know, every week Zoom, they're always, you know, making modifications to their platform, and this week I just I don't know what to make of that, but hopefully we can. Oh, look at that. Look at that. All right. Boy, I should have tried that 20 minutes ago. Okay, so this is the sidewalk for folks that are local. This is the sidewalk that is on the west side of the pedestrian bridge, which crosses the Fox River. It's between Illinois Avenue and Prairie. The Illinois and Prairie bridges, and I think this was probably a raccoon, but it might have been a mink. It was somebody wet that had come up on the sidewalk, and this track pattern here, it is typical of either a waddling raccoon or a bounding mink. I say probably raccoon just because there's a garbage can actually off to the side over here, and the raccoons will a lot of times hit the garbage can and then maybe go down to the water, see if they can find something to eat or drink down there. This thing then squeezed its way up onto the sidewalk, crossed over, and then went down on the other side. The reason that I'm not ruling mink out is the spaces here. There's one more. So let's see. Let's go to the next picture here. This is where it came up. There's quite a bit of water here. Let's move this out of the way. Quite a bit of water here, and then it came over. Oh, there's the gauge. There's the 2 5/8 inch lip balm. Showing, or the animal came up, stopped for just a minute, and then proceeded on its way that way. So this is another thing to consider when you're tracking the movements of animals. You're not always going to be able to see those textbook definitions of heel pads and toes, claw marks, things like that. Sometimes it's just a pattern of movement, and it's either a raccoon or a mink, depending on you know, who it actually was. Let's go back here one more time. Waddle, 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 or bound, 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 bound. This actually also is the place here on the west side. This is where an otter was sighted. I would love to think that it was an otter, but there's usually an otter quill in addition.
Hey, Pam.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, Pam. I think we're not maybe seeing what you think we're seeing. Like we just see
Are you still
like a sidewalk with wet spots.
Are you seeing
There's
my arrow moving around?
No.
Are you seeing? What do you see now?
We see the same thing, which is like the sidewalk with the shadow of the railing.
Oh. Do you see a spider now?
No.
Oh. Okay. Let's stop. I'm going to try it again. Oh, the good news is 13 more minutes and this technical torture will be over. Let's try sharing the screen one more time. Share sound, optimize for video. All right. We seeing a spider now?
I see nothing actually.
Me neither.
Oh, so screen sharing is loading. Wonder what that means. I just have too many windows open. Screen sharing is loading. All right, I'm gonna stop it again. Try it one more time. Share. Yeah, I've not, this is a brand new message I've not seen before. Your screen share is loading. There's really not that much to be, I've only got the one window. Oh, here we go. All right. Now I'm screen sharing it. So now are you seeing a spider?
No, we see like your taskbar at the bottom.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Oh, now we
yes,
see the spider.
Now you see the spider?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll have to, maybe read or watch a Zoom help video after we're done tonight. This is all new. I've not dealt with this new format or this annoying box, but so yeah, okay. So if we just go back here one more time, this was the sidewalk, the tracks that are possibly a raccoon, possibly a mink. The point is, tracking can sometimes be more looking at patterns as opposed to actual details of things like toes and heel pads. This was a very exciting, how often do you see spiders that are active in February? This was over the weekend. I had the dogs out for a walk. I opened the front door and this little guy caught my eye. It is a male. And spiders, just like most other species, that's the male that's going to get going first. We know it's a male because he's got his enlarged pedipalps here. Those are his reproductive organs. But it was just kind of unexpected to see a spider on the move, because even though it had been warmish during the day, it had been in the 40s. By the time I was out with the dogs, it was probably back down in the 30s again. But things are happening, even though we're still very much in winter season. All right, this is just a series of ads that I belong to. Being from Wheaton, I belong to a Wheaton Facebook page, and there are a couple of railroad historians on there that are very into the, I learned it as the Roarin Elgin. My grandfather worked for the Roarin Elgin Railroad. He was an ad man for them, but it was called the CA&E, Chicago, Aurora, and Elgin. But way back in the day, it was the Aurora, Elgin, and Chicago Railroad. And they heavily promoted coming out to the Fox River Valley for a day or a weekend. What I didn't realize was that the tracks went down to Yorkville. Most of my biking adventures along the Fox River Trail, which is the old Aurora Elgin tracks, I usually stop around Aurora, but they actually listed Yorkville on here. These were just various ads from the, I believe these were the 19-teens and the 1920s. Beautiful Fox River Valley, the loveliest country in the section. Fishing, boating, picnicking, amusement parks, or just plain loafing to your heart's content. It's a paradise for city folks, little ones or grown-ups, away from the heat, dust, and din. Train service every half hour, weekdays, every 15 minutes on Sundays, via the great Third Rail Electric. I was looking at this, I don't know if this was, I would love to know what part of the Fox River this was taken at. It doesn't have an identifier. It's just called Paradise. The right way to the road races. the famous Panhandle trip with a stopover privilege at Aurora and Elgin. So you can hit the racetrack at Maywood too. There's just a neat look into the past, the beautiful Fox River Valley, the people's playground. Those of us who live around here, I think sometimes we forget how lucky we are to have this sort of scenery and the Fox River resource, that is right here in our own backyards or front yards, depending on what part of town you live in. All right, so this is a little flashback. A few weeks ago, we talked about milkweed floss and how it was used to stuff life jackets during World War II. Well, this was a usage of milkweed floss. It was popular in the 1920s and 30s. These are called silhouette paintings. And what it is, this one is exclusively, well, there might be a little bit of grass. Yeah, there are some grass heads here too. But people would take milkweed floss and spread it out. And then they might add some little adornments of other local or native flowers or grasses. But then they would, on the glass, the back of the glass, they would paint these silhouette scenes, and then they would mount the glass over the milkweed. And it was most popular, I think, in the 1920s and 30s, about the same time as those Aurora Elgin ads were being put out. But it was something I wasn't aware of until somebody mentioned this was at an estate sale, and it's a cool thing, very representative of that Depression era, and something now I kind of want to be on the lookout for, because it's pretty a use of milkweed that I wasn't aware of. Maybe you were, but it's news to me. And then I get this picture on Sunday. A friend was walking out at Gray Willows Farm, which is part of the Campton Township open space properties. And she said it was about the size of a deer skull, or of a skull, about the size of a skull. In my head, I was picturing a deer skull, but I think what this is, so this is milkweed floss too. And it's wrapped around a, what I think is a bird's nest. Remember we had this picture, this was in November. This was I think this is an old cardinal's nest. This is a Osage orange tree. We can tell by all those thorns. A mouse had appropriated this nest for itself once the bird was done with it. And this is, I wouldn't say it's everywhere, but it is somewhat common where a bird will take over a nest and they'll customize it for their own uses in the wintertime. Milkweed, that floss, it insulates well, and it's got a waxy coating on it, so it helps repel water. I was curious, so this particular nest was over off of Peck Road. I haven't made it back out there yet to see how it's fared over our warmish, but also quite wet and somewhat snowy in that 1 week of Arctic conditions. I wonder how this nest is fared, but I kind of think it might look like this. I have not been over to see this nest. I did get some directions on how to find it, but I think what's under here, we can kind of see here the parts of a bird nest. I think this is what happens. I think that's how milkweed floss weathers. And it looks like it's still protecting the innards of that nest pretty well. So it might be something you want to look for when you're out and about yourselves. What other uses animals have found for milkweed floss. All right, and this was just a quick little gee whiz thing. I'm going to move this square over here. We are very much acquainted in our area here with red foxes. That's a species that, there's some debate as to how how truly native they are, and because there were a lot of red foxes that were imported for the sport of fox hunting. But this is a truly native creature. It's called a gray fox. And it's actually not that closely related to the red fox. It's got its own genus, and it's got some interesting features. One, it's smaller than our red foxes. Two, it's true to its name, gray fox. It's got a lot of gray speckling on its back. It doesn't have a white tip to its tail, which is what we tend to see with our red foxes. And then third, the coolest thing, or what I think is the coolest thing, is that it has semi-retractable claws. So you know how cats have claws that will retract in and they can splay out as needed. These creatures have, they're semi-retractable. They don't go in and out quite to the extent that we see on cats, but it does allow this animal to climb up into trees. In fact, that's its preferred denning site when it is raising its young. Now, we haven't seen any gray foxes that I'm aware of in Kane County in quite some time. About maybe, this wasn't Kane County, this was Cook County, but maybe going back maybe between 10 and 15 years ago, there used to be a magazine called Chicago Wilderness. It was put out by Chicago Wilderness, and it was called Chicago Wilderness. They actually profiled a family of gray foxes that lived in a cemetery on it's either the south side of Chicago or the south suburbs. And it was a great place where people could go and see these animals, or try to see these animals. They are somewhat elusive, but over time, the coyotes moved in. The gray foxes were they either vamoosed on their own, or they were taken out as a part of the coyotes claiming that territory. But this is a gray fox mount out at our friend Peggy's Nature Center out in Genoa, DeKalb County. It's called Russell Woods. And this is part of a display of several taxidermy animals that are on exhibit there. Something just reminded me, I hadn't thought about gray foxes in a long time. It might be good to put on people's radars, because if there does happen to be one in an area, they would probably be in a more rural area. Although those foxes that were living at the cemetery, it was quite urban where they were. But awareness is always the first step in getting people to look for and appreciate these animals. So now you have it, a little bit about gray foxes, something to keep an eye out for. And now I really fought with myself. I thought I decided not to put this in, but this was somewhat interesting. This is along the Fox River Trail. Yes, that is dog poop, the big brown splotch that was probably beaten down by the rain and snow that we had. But a wild canine, I'm thinking this was probably a coyote, given the location that it was there along the river. But this is a classic sign of how animals use their bodily functions to send messages and market territory. The domestic dog had left one splotch, but then the wild dog had come and remarked it, saying, no, this is not your trail, this is mine. So that's always fun to see. I've seen this with coyote scat on top of fox scat on top of coyote scat. And one time there was a coyote scat on top of a pile of horse dumplings. So just sort of just as we were looking at the world through the eyes of animals who have ultraviolet vision, this is a look at how animals who have a really good sense of smell view the world and how they need to communicate in it. All right, one last little note. It sounds like we might be getting some cooler weather again next week, but there are certainly signs of spring starting to pop up, and this is one of them when the geese move themselves away from those larger flocks that we've been seeing now for the last couple of months. When they start going on little dates like this, you know that can't be too much longer before the breeding season progresses. This is a pair of Canada geese. Typical postures here. The female is feeding, the male is watching, keeping watch, being vigilant, taking occasional little snacks himself. But we'll be seeing more and more of this as spring becomes more and more apparent. All right, let's do away with this share. When I say, I think we had a couple of chats to get to before we say goodnight. Diana is voting for a Harry. Laura is voting for Harry. Yeah, going by that bill. I wonder if it might be, that bird might have had, because it doesn't seem to have much of a tail. Woodpeckers, they have those stiff tail feathers at the bottom that make it, the tail feathers kind of act like what would you call it? Kickstand is the only word that's coming to mind. But woodpeckers actually have these very stiff tail feathers that help them kind of balance or keep them upright as they're knocking on wood, on trees and things like that. And I didn't really see much in the way of tail feathers on that bird, so that might have contributed to its smaller looking body size. But yeah, that bill to me looks more like a hairy woodpecker. So thanks for sharing those opinions. Just this week there have been posts about leucistic red-tailed hawk somewhere in Piatt County. Oh wow, a turkey vulture. I'll have to look for that. Is that
the photos are really cool.
So it's a white turkey vulture or a whitish?
Yeah, it's really cool. If you're on the Illinois Birding Network Facebook page, you should check it out.
I will. I had actually looked up something on there when folks, if those of you who are on Facebook and if you're not on that Illinois Birding Network, that might be something you want to start to follow, because it is handy for things to look for during migrations, interesting or oddly colored birds. I'll have to check that out, Jerry. That's one thing I just don't get about Facebook, where I'll, sometimes, that's one of the only things I'll see when I'm scrolling through is all these birding network things. And then maybe because I don't click on them or something, then they go away for a while, but I will make an effort to check that out, because that sounds really
Who knows how that formula works? It's so frustrating sometimes.
Yeah. Ooh, who knows? And then reminds me what used to be at Norris Woods. That would be where we talk.
Pam, when you were talking about how they were attracting people.
For the yes, at the Aurora Elgin ads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Norris Woods has its own history, and that was one of the big, one of the draws.
That was in fact, we were just talking about that the other day. So there's going to be, and there will be more information coming on this, but Norris Woods has been, we're going to be inducted into the Old Growth Forest Network, which is, it's a national organization that is trying to get representatives of old growth forests in every county throughout the United States. And Norris Woods was chosen as the representative old growth forest for Kane County. Now, talking this over with Ryan, our restoration ecologist, he's like, well, it's not exactly old growth. When we think of old growth, we think of things that have never been touched. And like you just said, Laura, that area was very popular with tourists. There's the remnants of the kiddie pool. When you come into the park, there's the remnants of the shower house, the teeter-totter, merry-go-round. There's been a lot of human impact there. Of course, a lot of trees, the older trees are long gone, but anyway, that's kind of an exciting thing. That's going to be coming up the first weekend in April, is that induction ceremony. So I'll get you guys more information on that as that gets closer. But yeah, Norris Woods, we used to be Jones Woods and Jones Beach. And there was Rainbow Springs. There was a whole lot of resorts through that section, starting at St. Charles and heading up towards Five Islands, which was another stop with the dance hall there and things like that. So yeah, kind of a neat look at how our little area used to be viewed as a resort destination. Folks, like I got to spend some time looking at Zoom and what they've done over the last week or two, so that hopefully the next time we meet, this won't be such a technical nightmare. But I do very much appreciate you tuning in tonight. We'll be back again next week with more good nature. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you,
See
Pam.
you soon.
Thanks, Pam.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye.
Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
Pam.
Good night, John.